Well, hello again. Welcome back. I'm going to read my presentation because my English is not that fluent. So, thank you very much to all of you for being here today. Also, many thanks to Hector and to Herschel and to the Nahalat Shalom community for giving me the opportunity to participate in this beautiful festival and to have the honor of introducing Rachel Bortnick, who I really admire. Although I've known her and her passionate work on the Sephardic world for many years now, this is the first time we have the chance to meet in person, so that's great. And I want to say that there is a famous line from the Zohar that says, "Many light shines in a single word." I think you can say that, something like that, about Rachel's journey. She was born and raised in Izmir, Turkey. She has lived in many places, has had many professions, and has spoken in many languages, but above all, she has dedicated her life to the survival of Ladino, the language that the Sephardic Jews forged in exile after they've been expelled from Spain in 1492. Rachel came to the United States on a university scholarship to Lindenwood College in St. Charles, Missouri. She had never been out of Izmir before that. Nonetheless, these Turkish Jewish girls alone in a new land found a way to move on, to get a VI in chemistry, meet the love of her life and start a family, become an ESL teacher for 35 years, and most of all, to create in 1999 a huge online community for Ladino speakers. Because Ladino Comunità, imagined and created by Rachel many years before the pandemic pushed us into virtuality, was nothing less than that. A portable homeland where the Sephardim could once again sing, cook, bless, curse, have fun, or remember in their own language. But there is still more. This incredible woman has also participated in the film you just saw, Trees Cries for Rain, a Sephardic journey. Árboles lloran por lluvias. Un journey, un recorrido sefaradí, un trayecto sefaradí, where she tells the story of her life, but also the story of the Jewish community in which she grew up in Izmir. As you can see, the Zohar line I started with couldn't be more true. So many lights in the life of this incredible woman. Let's listen to her.
You almost made me cry. I have never been introduced in such a poetic, beautiful way. Thank you so much. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. Thank you, Herschel and Hector, for giving me the opportunity to meet this fantastic woman in person. Thank you all for your patience, for being here all day and listening to. I hope that you will find what I'm going to say interesting. Yeah, I'm sure you're so tired of hearing about me. I didn't know you were going to be watching the movie now. So some of what I had prepared is sort of a repeat. So I'm going to skip those parts. So I've asked the technical team to just listen, and I'm not going to be using maybe all the pictures, or we'll go very fast through them.
Parece que no te escuchan bien.
No, you don't hear me well?
Try now.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was born 84 years ago in Izmir, Turkey, and you heard all that. So, of course, my life started in Ladino. And we'll just run through a few pictures of my childhood, some of which I think are in the movie. I don't like watching my movie. I don't like listening to my voice, but I'm very grateful, and I'm going to tell you about a little bit later about how that came about. Since the time that I left Turkey, I have ventured into many different places away from my home. I didn't know how difficult that would be because I had never been out of my city. So on top of that, it was being cut off by my culture during long periods of time, which I'm going to skip very quickly over because they were very difficult times, when the Ladino language and the culture and the memories of my life were like a secret that I carried with me, and that it was hidden in my soul and nobody else knew about it. I had a very hard time adjusting to new lives, and I admire people, the immigrants and the other people who come and change their lives so drastically and are able to adapt as much faster than I was able to. It was like the people who met me as a person were meeting another person than I really was, because my language had changed. As you saw, people didn't know anything about Sephardic Jews. So I just went along until it became too painful. We lived in St. Louis. You want, what pictures are you showing? Okay, this is when it started. I was learning about a few words, and that was in Ladino. Let's go on to the different pictures, please. That's my parents. I don't know if that was in the movie, I forgot, or not. My father, Joseph, my mother, Sarah, my older brother, Sami, or Samuel, and my other older brother, Selim, whose Hebrew name was Shalom, but Selim is the Turkish name, and me. But Sami, I don't remember, because shortly after that picture, he died of meningitis. But I remember walking in the street and people asking, I was very cute, I had curly hair and so on, so people just pinching ay, tu hermano se murió, that kind of thing. I didn't even know what that meant. So I don't remember him, but my brother did, and he, when I say my brother, because I only had one brother so far as I'm concerned, and he always missed him. He died 3 years ago in Israel. So that's sort of that part of my story. What else? Do I have any more? Oh, yes. Let's go on to the next picture, because I wanted to tell you, this is a picture. I'm sitting on my mother's lap, only to tell you that 4 people in this picture are not Jewish. And they were the neighbors that I think I mentioned that I went and where I was sent to the, so that we were very close with these neighbors. And they are the two ladies and their two ladies, as a matter of fact, one was actually French, but she had married a Muslim and the husbands had died, and so they were widows, each with their daughters are here. We were very close with them. And now that I look at it, and I say, I wonder how they felt. You know, they are, in this group, this was at the beach area that we used to go for swimming and so on. And I say, I wonder how they felt. Everybody's speaking Spanish, and they didn't know. But I think they understood. They were so much among Jewish people that, and also it shows two things, I think. The multicultural situation in the Turkish life at that time. There were Christians and Muslims and so on, and the Jewish areas, now the area that I grew up in, they're calling now the second Juderia. The first Juderia, let's go on a little bit more. Excuse me, I'm going to sort of skip. I have a thing, but I'm not going to follow it. Okay, this is my Jewish school, Bnei Berit, 4th grade. The principal, Monsieur Coriel, vice principal, Monsieur Yahya, and in the middle is our arithmetic teacher who failed me in arithmetic, actually. We didn't like him. He was very strict and serious all the time. Monsieur Moussani. You notice we call them Monsieur, French. Then we also had, I think I have a picture with the Turkish teacher there. The next one, I think. Yeah, this is she was Muslim, but she worked in a Jewish school because we had to, this is the Republic, we had to follow the Turkish set curriculum. So for Turkish subjects, whatever it was, the language or the literature or whatever, we had the Turkish, meaning Muslim, teacher. And as you see, we all were like this, not just in the Jewish school, but also in the Turkish school to which I transferred. I have a picture of that also. You see, we all had these uniforms at the time. Those had been lifted now and changed. I think I don't know if they still have uniforms even. Okay, so this is sort of a visual recap of that life in Ladino. What comes next? I have to figure, I marked it, but this was picture 5, I think. And no, that was picture 6. Okay, so altogether from after I left for St. Charles, Missouri, which is a place near St. Louis, of course, 2 years totally cut off, except for, I think most of you are old enough to remember the handwritten letters that we had to buy stamps and to go to the post office and mail and airmail letters. Do you remember those? That where you didn't have to buy but it was because it was a few cents cheaper. So all those letters that I wrote are, of course, in Ladino with all my family. And I received, of course. That's the only way we could communicate. Then you heard the story. We lived in Rotterdam, Holland. We were married in Turkey. Oh yes, we have a picture. Oh, okay. I'm glad you came to that. This is very important. The first, well, while we lived in St. Louis before this, while we lived in St. Louis, altogether between Kansas City and St. Louis, 18 years, 17 of them in St. Louis, there were no Sephardic people. Finally, I met one who was from Bulgaria, but basically there was nobody. But I became so frustrated about this situation of it. Still people asking me, how can you be Jewish, Well, what, Turkey? Who ever heard of Jews in Turkey? I was such an oddity. It used to make me feel very bad. And I used to be very shy. I never talked in front of people in gatherings. Even when I met my husband, he remembers me as not saying anything when, during the conversations. But I had to come out of my shell and do something. So the first thing that I did do while we lived in St. Louis is in the synagogue, conservative synagogue where we belonged, together with another Israeli gentleman, not Ashkenazic, but who knew about Sephardic history, and the rabbi, who was very knowledgeable, arranged what they call the Sephardic Kala, where they invited acquaintance of our rabbi who worked in Calcutta, India. And he came, and he was of the, I didn't know that at that time, I didn't know that non-Ashkenazic meant, or that Sephardic meant to the American Jews non-Ashkenazic, anything. So he came, a very nice man. His daughter, as a matter of fact, writes for Hadassah magazine these days. And his name is Masliach, a Hebrew name, of the Iraqi Jews that had gone from Iraq to India, from that community. And he knew very little about the Spanish side of our history. So I had an opportunity for the first time of publicly talking about the Turkish Jews. And that was also when I met those people I mentioned this morning who were from Syria and had very Sephardic names, but didn't know Ladino. So they spoke Arabic at home. So this was all new to me. So that was my only time that I went out and did something. And then the other thing I did, which was also part of that secret life of mine, was in 1979 in Israel, they started publishing the cultural review, which was coming out 4 times a year, called Aki Yerushalayim, whose editor was Moshe Shaul. May he rest in peace. He just died about a month ago in Israel. He had started in the Israeli national radio Ladino hour, Emisión en Judeo-Español, they used to call it. And then he tells the story about how that evolved into Aki Yerushalayim. But anyway, this was a wonderful thing for me. For the first time, I was reading Ladino in print. Before that, it was my letters back and forth, I had never read anything in Ladino. It was our oral language. So that's the St. Louis part. And then my husband was transferred to San Francisco, California. So we had to move again. And there again, I didn't know anybody. But a miracle happened, something really serendipitous. I used to belong to Hadassah, and there was a Hadassah luncheon at one of the conservative synagogues there in Oakland. We lived in Oakland on the hills. And you know how it is, round tables, and all the women are sitting, like 10 to a table, and I'm sitting in one, not knowing anybody. And so every person is introducing themselves. My name is this, my name is that. And the person next to me introduced herself as Paulette Sevi. And after we were finished, I said, Paulette, are you French? She said, no, I'm from Greece. I immediately said, ¿hablas español? Dice, seguro. Seguro. And we became friends. And this person is Isaac Sevi, whom, if you saw the film, he sings, or there is his voice singing. The man who sings there is Isaac Sevi. He had a gorgeous voice. The first time not only gorgeous voice, but he knew the makams, the Middle Eastern patterns of singing with which both the liturgical, paraliturgical, and as well as Ladino songs were sung to. And he was a treasure house of Sephardic music, both in Hebrew, like from the synagogue, and it was very, very emotional for me to hear those sounds again after so many years, from 58, and this would have been 1985. The two good things happened. Many good things. I met the friends of the Sevis, and as you know, Greece was part of the Ottoman Empire, so we have the same culture. Isaac was a survivor of the Holocaust. He had been in Auschwitz. Paulette was not, and then they introduced me to other people. These people had come after the war, almost all of them. There were maybe 8 or 10 people in their group, all from Greece. A few were survivors. The others had stories to tell, like they had hidden in the mountains, or somebody had helped them escape somehow. Not from the camps, from Greece. So anyway, that was an eye-opener for me, because in Turkey, I was too little to know what was happening. But I do remember people in my house throwing the children out, and then the people crying inside the house, in the room. They wanted us out of the room. And now I understood why. We had family members whose, my one aunt was married to somebody from Salonika, and his entire family had disappeared. I don't know how many people, 20, 30 people had disappeared. And so it touched us personally, but I still didn't know what exactly had happened. And here I had met, for the first time, people who had lived through what my parents and aunts and uncles were crying about when I was little. So anyway, when I met all these people, and then through them I met other American-born Sephardim who lived in that area, I said, and we spoke Ladino among us. And it was, they did anyway among themselves, and then I came. And so we were like a little community, and I said, let's make this a club and let people know that we exist and who we are. And so that led to an organization that became a real organization with a membership dues, minimal, nothing, a monthly newsletter which I wrote called Los Amigos Sefardís. And when we decided to do this, I wrote a letter to the San Francisco Jewish Chronicle. If anybody's of this background and knows Ladino, can contact me and so on. And we got a few more people that way. And thus was born the club we called, as I said, Los Amigos Sefardíes. And that got publicity, and there was very soon afterwards, our first meeting was in January of 1985. This, I think, is in April that you saw the article that they put about it. And yes, go back to that other thing that is the soletreo. Yes. I also kept a book in which people made their entries. And this one is by Isaac Sevi, who wrote his entry in soletreo, the same thing that you saw Denise show you about from her grandmother. And I have, yes, that's it. And I have the translation, didn't I have it below? Yes, or the transcription there. So you can see that what those characters are written in Spanish, really. And in Dallas, I was to meet later another lady from Salonika who said to me, ¿Sabes escribir en español? Do you know how to write in Spanish? And I said, no, yo no estudié español. I never studied Spanish. No, me dijo, escribir en español. Nah, sí. And so she starts writing this way to me. She called that español. Very interesting. So it had different names. My grandfather called it Ladino. This was the first time when Isaac Sevi wrote his entry, it was the first time that I saw this writing again since my grandfather died in Turkey, because he didn't know the Latin alphabet. This is all he knew. He kept his shop accounts and who owed what money and so on, or he used to measure gentlemen for clothes, and everything was in that kind of writing. And that's when I said, Grandpapa, ¿cuáles estos ganchos? What are these hooks that you make? And he told me, esto se llama Ladino. That was the only time I heard the word Ladino. But I find it a very good name for our language, but other people don't agree, but I do like it. Okay, so that was the fantastic thing that led to other fantastic things, and one of them was that the council, the Spanish Council of San Francisco, wrote to me and asked me that he would like to come. We had a program every time we met in somebody's house. We had, of course, the Sephardic goodies that everybody brought, but we also had a program. Somebody said something, had a little talk. And so he had read about it from the Jewish Chronicle, I suppose, and contacted me and said, I would like to come and talk to your group. And so he came, and we had to actually meet in the Judah Magnus Museum in their auditorium, because so many people heard about it and came to hear him speak. And he was the first that I know of Spanish official who apologized for the expulsion of the Jews. And that was also covered. I think I have the clipping of, after this one, of that report in the San Francisco Jewish Chronicle about it. So that was one thing. And the other thing was that came out of this Los Amigos Sefardíes is the film that you just saw. What happened was the filmmaker, Bonnie Burt, yes, this is the article. Okay, we can go take it out. The filmmaker Bonnie Burt was one of the people who had come I don't know when she first came, but she became a member of Los Amigos Sefardis. She knew Spanish, and she was fascinated. And then she said to me one day, I decided to do a series of Jewish educational films for schools, Jewish schools and so on. I'd like to do the first one with you. And I said, okay, whatever. She came one day with a tape recorder and said to me, tell me about some customs or something like that. And I just told her. And tell me about, Sephardic history, or how come you ended up in Turkey. So I told her. And then she said, I'd like to come with my camera crew. And so we arranged, and I said, well, I think it'll be boring if I just spoke, So she said, good idea. Let's ask Esther Levy, who was my good friend. She was from Alexandria, Egypt, but her parents, as you heard probably, were from Izmir, who had gone to Egypt. And she had, you heard, she had a wonderful voice, and she sang real authentically. So the crew came, and we had planned, Esther and I, that she would make burekas while I talked, and the film was made. So that was the other outcome of this Los Amigos Sefardis. And after that, what do you know? We had to move again. I don't know if I mentioned that early on we also lived in Rotterdam and then Israel and so on. But anyway, it doesn't matter, I'm talking impromptu now. Okay, good. So we had to move again, and this time to Dallas. Oh dear, another no man's land for so far as Ladino speakers is concerned. I don't know anybody. I don't know her. Oh my, hello everybody. And so again, I put a letter in the Texas Jewish Post. If anybody was Sephardic, I met a couple of people that way. And then this wonderful lady who's sitting here in front, Jackie Wald, comes. In Dallas, I was a writer for a magazine, Dallas Jewish Life, for a couple of years. It existed. It didn't exist after a couple of years, couldn't make it financially. But anyway, I was sent to interview this lady in her home for a piece of art, very unusual art. She can tell you later about it. But anyway, she introduced me to some Sephardic people with whom I became very good friends. They were also from Greece, and so I had some connection in Dallas. But the big real turn of events happened in 1999, where in 1997, I'll go 2 years back, in Israel, the Israeli government decided to form a government-supported, they call it authority for Ladino and its culture, Autoridad Nacional del Ladino. And the president was, that means to support and promote and preserve Ladino and its culture. And its president was Yitzhak Navon, may he rest in peace, who was the 5th president of the State of Israel and the only Sephardi to hold the office of president of the State of Israel, Ladino speaker. And the vice president was Moshe Shaul, who published the Aki Yerushalayim, magazine that I mentioned. You'll let me know because I have no idea. I forgot to look at my...
There's about 15 more minutes. So
okay.
if you want to take questions,
No, I'm not finished. So I have to say this, because this is what led to Ladino Comunità. So this Autoridad Nacional del Ladino in Jerusalem convened the first international Congress of Ladino speakers with the precise purpose of discussing how to write and how to spell Ladino in Latin letters. Because as you know, Hebrew, or a variety of Hebrew letters, had been used to write Ladino. And you saw the handwritten, which is called soletreo, but also there was a form called the Rashi script, which is the printed form of that. It doesn't look like that. It looks more like the Hebrew that you know, but different. There's some differences. It's easy if you know that Hebrew, you can also read that. And again, it was developed in Spain, both of these writing systems. Rashi, you know, was a great Torah commentator. He was Ashkenazic, but they call it the Rashi script because his commentaries were printed when the printing press came around. They printed the books of his commentaries in that Sephardic script to distinguish it from the original text. They used to put the original text of the Torah in Hebrew, and then his commentaries in Hebrew, but to distinguish the commentary from the text, they used the Sephardic script. So it became to be known the Rashi script. Very interesting thing. All these things I learned later. I mean, not in Turkey. I didn't know any of this in Turkey. So all this involvement has been such an educational experience for me as well. In this Congress, the people came from all over the world, Spanish scholars from Spain and so on. I was invited to moderate a panel because I had written for Aki Yerushalayim and so on. By the way, did you see the article that I wrote about Herschel and this festival? Herschel, tell them. Go.
It's amazing. We have copies of it, a few copies, and it's written in Ladino, and it's about us.
So you can pick it up, and so anyway, Moshe Shaul, in his concluding speech, we voted to adopt the spelling system that this magazine called Aki Yerushalayim had developed to standardize the spelling of Ladino in Latin letters, that is, like English. Until then, everybody wrote any way they thought. If they had studied French and that was how they knew how to write, they would spell Ladino the French way. Most of us, not everybody, but Ladino in general has the word mucho with an N for many. You would see, even in my mother's letters, sometimes you will see mucho written with a CH in the Turkish C with a cedilla. It would have TCH as in French, because she was educated in French, for mucho, MUNTCHO. Then she would say in another place it would be MOUNTCHO. So everybody would write like they knew. The Italians would spell Espanol with GNOL and so on. So in this way, we voted to adopt the system that we're still using. It's always referred to as the Aki Yerushalayim system of spelling. And it's very logical and very simple. So anyway, So we voted to adopt that, and Moshe Shaul in his speech said, now that we have developed and we have voted and accepted that we will use this system of spelling, and we have an opportunity to promote it because now there is such a thing as an internet, and many people are buying computers. And so we can have a correspondence group and use this so that it gets known and spread around. Applause, fine. And I thought, no, I'm not finished. And I'm telling that there was applause there, completed. And then I came home. This was in October of 1999. And I came home and I said, I talked to some of the people that I knew, Ladino speakers, and said, this idea was put forth by Moshe Shaul. If I start a group, would you join me? And they said, oh, what a great idea. Yes, let's do it. So I asked somebody, how do you start a correspondence group? They told me, you go to this website and you say, start a group, and you make up a name. So I called it Ladino Comunidad, and it stuck, and we're still going strong for 1,500 years. 1,500 what? Members is what I meant. That sort of made me famous. I got so many opportunities because of that. But I want to conclude with one very interesting thing that we did as a group last time. Let me tell you also before I go there, that in 2007, Ladino Comunidad started having physical meetings where we took a trip somewhere, and we met, people from different countries met at the trip to a place of Sephardic significance. So we have formed personal friendships through Ladino Comunidad, not just correspondence, and we've been all over. And the last one, I think I have a picture of the cruise that we took in, it wasn't the last one, but it's a one where we're all together. Sometime maybe he'll project it. But the last project that we did was, I received a book from Spain, from a friend of mine who happens to be a very well-known scholar of Sephardic history and literature, Sephardic literature. Her name is Paloma Diaz-Mas, and she's in the she is in the Basque country now. But anyway, she has a long story. You can look her up. She has loads of stuff on Sephardic culture and history and literature. And she has a book that has been translated into English, The Sephardic Jews, I think it's called. Paloma Diaz-Mas is her name. Anyway, I received a book written by her totally out of character of her. It's a children's book, and it is written in what is called the romancero style, which is poems in the medieval romancero ballad style, which is also a style of many of our Sephardic poetry, romanzas. We call them romanzas, which are ballads. Not all the songs are romanzas, by the way. This book was usually, as I said, it's really hard for me to read books in Spanish. Just too hard. But this was so adorable. It had 11 so-called romances, supposedly for children, but very contemporary issues like the environmental pollution, like immigration, having classmates from a different country who don't know the language, developers who want to buy your land to build apartments, all kinds of things like that, beautifully illustrated. I read the whole thing. I said, this is so great. I said, wouldn't it be fun to translate this into Ladino? So I put a notice on Ladino Comunità, and I said, I described the book, and I said, are there any volunteers who would like to take one romanza? Each one is either 1 or 2 pages. Some of them go up to 4 pages, but it has illustrations, and they're poetic, so. And I got volunteers. Each took one romanza, and then I gave them a deadline when they have to send me the translated forms. And then, but everybody did it the way they could, and they didn't realize how important it was to keep the romance format. So we made an editorial team, about 5 or 6 of us, of the translators were interested. And we met over 2 months, once or twice a week, going line by line. Among the people was one expert, Rina Ben-Mayor, Dr. Rina Ben-Mayor, who is a specialist on the medieval romancero style, who was a stickler about keeping the rhyme and the rhythm of the original, because otherwise you can't call it a romanza. So we had this editorial team go line by line, making sure that we kept the same meaning and the same rhythm and the same rhyme in Ladino. And what to me in the beginning seemed like, oh, from Spanish to Ladino should be easy, right? It was so difficult. We had so many discussions. Can we use this word? And people were fighting. These were Zoom sessions. Fighting, no, I never heard that word. Well, it's in the dictionary, so it must, but nobody uses it anymore. But it rhymes, so we can put it in. So, this it was so educational and so fun that when we were finished, people were complaining, now what do we do? And now we're at a point where we have the final version of the Ladino. It's called, by the way, if anybody's interested, it's called Las Romances de la Rata Sabia. And it's about a female rat that lives in a library and gets tired of reading books, so she begins to write romances. It is such an adorable book. It's in Spanish, and you can get it on Amazon if you want. But now what we want to do is find, just Friday, Rina and I sent our final letter to the publishing house in Spain. We have, by the way, during all this editing, we also kept the author, we kept in touch with the author so that she approved, and some things she did not approve on, like we had decided that maybe we should put accents to help people how to pronounce it. And she said, no, take off the accents. That's not the Akira Yerushalayim method. They don't use accents. So take them out. And then some things we weren't sure of because there were references to Christian holidays. And we had like the one about a present for Navidad. We made for Hanukkah. The present was for Hanukkah. There was the one about the gardener whose land, this person, Belardo, who has a garden, and this developer wants to buy in order to build the buildings on his land, and he doesn't want to sell. And so he says that I love this herb and that other herb and that other vegetable, and some of which, the herbs especially, we didn't know the Ladino names. And if we did, it wouldn't have rhymed. So in one case, we changed and we put the names of things that you find a lot in Sephardic gardens, like Ruda y Yasemin, which worked so perfectly. The Yasemin rhymed with the rhyme that we wanted, and we didn't know how. We put a footnote saying this is not a direct translation, but an adaptation. And she loved that. The author loved that, those Judaizing elements that we put into those things. So we are at the point now where we're negotiating and seeing how we'll do. So maybe in a year or so, there'll be a book out on that. You are fantastic. Thank you so much for your interest. And Herschel, thank you again. Thank you so much. And thank you, technical team. I'm sorry I didn't keep with my script.
We have time for one question, if anybody wants to ask a question, and then we'll take a little break.
Yeah, I think we deserve a break.
If anybody has a question, can you?
It's okay. I was just going to say, when are you going to talk again? That was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a big compliment. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure. I mean, it's my life. It has invigorated me. It's kept me alive, I think. I think if this kind of thing, if I hadn't been involved in this kind of thing, I think I would have died some time ago. Really. I'm just so happy now. And happy also that I'm not alone in the people determined to keep this language alive, that there are so many more people involved.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Susan, if you want to unmute.
She took it down.
Yes, I do have a question for you. A few years ago, I got an email. I happened to be on the Smithsonian Institution. And
where is it?
National Culture Festival. And it had a list of endangered languages. And it mentioned Yiddish, but it did not mention Latino. Is there a way to get the Smithsonian to recognize the Sephardi culture and Latino as a language?
It's very interesting that you say that Ladino wasn't mentioned, because UNESCO declared it an endangered language. What year was it? I think it was 2011. We had a meeting in Paris, promoted by UNESCO, actually initiated by a Sephardic friend in France, that we could do it because it was an endangered language. I don't know where to look. Where did you see the person?
She was on.
Oh, okay.
Her voice came through as a question.
Oh, okay. In any case, it is recognized as an endangered language so far as I know. I mean, I know it had been, unless it has been taken off because of all this activity we have going. Maybe they took it off the list.
It worked,
Maybe,
right?
I hope it'll go off the
Yeah,
list of an
yeah.
endangered language.
If anyone can do it, you can, Russia. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.